Now, you know I love me my bad movies, right? This is the 1978 Italian-made Star Wars knockoff, Starcrash. You've probably seen reviews of this or riffs on this movie, like, say, Mystery Science Theater 3000 infamously made fun of Starcrash. I don't really watch that show. I haven't really seen it very much. I'd rather just watch the movies, make my own fun from these stupid-ass movies. So I did. Although I don't think it's quite as bad as everybody says. Is pretty fucking terrible, and it's hilarious. Hilarious because it's so blatant of a Star Wars ripoff, but at the same time its own weird, just bonkers ass thing that's going on in here. You know, they don't directly rip off the characters from Star Wars, but so many of the concepts, like you have an Emperor of the Galaxy, who actually in this one turns out to be good and not evil. You have one of your main characters is like, well, for lack of a better term, a Jedi. You know, he's got like mental powers and magic powers, and he fights with a laser sword and shit. And I mean, so you got like your Luke Skywalker ripoff, right? However, instead of Han Solo and Princess Leia, you get those two characters rolled into one, and you get Stella Star, portrayed by the legendary Caroline Munro. I believe she's a British actress. I was in love with this woman in the 70s and the 80s. Hey, I mean, look at her. Hey, she's the protagonist, I guess. But it's really weird. It's very... I mean, this come from Italy in 1978, at a time when exploitation movies were really popular. Horror movies featuring lots of female nudity. Spoiler alert, Caroline Munro doesn't get naked in this movie, which is kind of a shame. But still, she's not given the most powerful, empowered female role in this movie. Like I said, she's kind of supposed to be like a cross between Han Solo and Princess Leia in one character. And the reason why I say that is because she's like a pilot, and she's a rebel. She doesn't play by the rules, and even though that's not really established here. But she's also Princess Leia, at least in A New Hope. She's a damsel in distress. And that's way too bad for this movie. I mean, like, they start off this movie presenting her as like a loose cannon kind of pilot and everything, but almost every action scene and every sci-fi set piece involves her getting like knocked out or captured and getting rescued by a male protagonist. That's stupid. But hey, I didn't watch Starcrash to make like political point here. It's still entertaining. She's still gorgeous. I just wish she had more to do. Well, she does everything, but she kind of like gets overwhelmed by unbeatable odds, and then suddenly there's, you know, whether it be her robot sidekick L, who's actually originally supposed to be like the space sheriff, but he's a robot. But since he's a sheriff, they give him like this Texas accent. He's one of the guys that rescues her. Then, of course, she gets rescued by Acton, who is like the Luke Skywalker kind of guy. This guy right here. I don't know, he looks like William Catt in red leather. A big blonde perm, and he's got a ton of eye makeup on. He fights with a laser sword, and he does some kind of weird-ass magic trick with optical effects, and it's not really very well explained. As a matter of fact, I had trouble following what this movie was actually about, because shit just happens like all over the place. It's like, okay, now they're on a spaceship, and everybody's freaking out, and they're all going insane and like clutching their heads in pain, and there's like floaty red lights everywhere. Like, what the fuck is going on? It wasn't until I actually read the like Wikipedia synopsis that I actually learned what the plot of this was. There's a bad guy who's supposed to be like Darth Vader, but he's dressed like a idiot. Like, this comes off looking so stupid. Yeah, okay, it's a cheap knockoff of Star Wars. Let's be honest, that's what it is. But it can't be that cheap. I mean, they put a lot into the set design aboard the spaceships. Like, everything's very, well, I won't say detailed, but everything's very stylized. Huge plastic glowing orb things in the middle of the ship, and then you've got all the blinky lights all over the place, and that crap can't be too cheap. Well, first of all, this movie's filmed, and I believe it's in Italian, so they could have spent more money on the dubbing actors. They could have spent more money on the, I guess what you call ADR recording. They could have spent more money on the writers and the script and like the direction. I don't know if that's a matter of spending money or just like a don't give a fuck, or something's lost in translation. But it's so confusing, and there's so much shit going on. And I mean, the sets are nice, and even like the space stuff, the spaceships and stuff, they don't look too bad. I mean, they're not much better than, say, I don't know, the original Star Trek, because they sure as shit ain't as good as Star Wars. Some of that looks really crappy, and I noticed one thing is, and this is very similar to what we saw in Hercules back in the day, well, which actually came after this movie. Maybe it's an Italian thing, but you know, when they show like a starry backdrop or like planets and stuff, and but they just show you a field of stars, they're all different colors. Whereas like if you see more what we would call a realistic sci-fi space adventure, the stars are all pretty much like white or bluish white or whatever, like Star Wars. Like maybe they did that to set themselves apart from Star Wars and make it look different and more better because there's more colors. It's pretty whack, man. There's a couple of other actors you might recognize in here. Like there's, of course, David Hasselhoff. That's right, Michael Knight himself, the Hoff in space. He doesn't show up until like, I don't know, I guess what would traditionally be called Act 2. I don't know if this movie really follows that structure or not, but anyway, like 2/3 of the way through the movie is when he shows up. He plays like this long-lost prince. He's the son of the Emperor. I think he has some kind of like magic Jedi powers as well. I can't remember. I watched this last week, and I'm probably not going to watch it again for a while. And then his father, the Emperor, is played by Christopher Plummer. I've seen this guy in a billion things, and let's throw some examples of his movies up there. Take care of that in editing, because I don't care to remember right now. But is it terrible, though? I mean, like, there's lots of neat shit that happens in here. There's some stop-motion effects that are kind of... Well, they're not quite Ray Harryhausen. And they come off looking really stupid. Like, there's like a giant Amazon statue. Looks very much like the Talos in Jason and the Argonauts, except done way worse. Our evil antagonist in the movie, he has a couple of robots that are done by stop motion as well. The miniature ship effects they're not even as good as Battlestar Galactica. And Battlestar Galactica, I think, actually, for its time, looked pretty well. And you know what time that was? The very same year, 1978. I do remember seeing commercials on TV and wanting to go see this, but I was like 7. I wasn't going to go to the theater by myself, so I'm kind of glad I never saw this in the theater, because I probably would have been sitting there going like, what the fuck is going on? Well, I didn't swear that much when I was 7, but still. Now I have the 2-disc special edition, collector's edition here. So I've got one disc with the movie on it, and I've got another disc that has bonus features. Planned on watching a bunch of those bonus features, because like this is like a legendary movie, right? So let's delve into the story a little bit. I mean, I saw the movie, and I was like, okay, I guess maybe it'll make a better video if I watch a bit of the documentaries. I watched, there's like an hour-long interview with Caroline Munro, which I skimmed through, and I think I caught about maybe a total of 5 minutes of. And she recalls it as being like very fun to film this movie. It was, there were some hardships, and she was in freezing cold weather and stuff like that, and wearing like a freaking bikini for 90% of the movie. So it's kind of interesting. Only interesting enough for me to watch 5 minutes out of an hour. It ain't no Star Wars. I don't know, Starcrash, like, I was looking forward to watching this one because I'd never seen it. Just last week was the first time I ever watched any of this movie. I'm gonna say I wasn't disappointed. I mean, I knew it was gonna be bad because everybody says, "Oh, this is one of the worst movies ever made. It's a Star Wars knockoff and it sucks and it's so dumb," and it does suck and it is so dumb. So I wasn't disappointed. And the entertainment value of this was kind of like, it was pretty good. I got a lot of laughs out of this, but it was so confusing. Like, what the fuck is even going on? And there's like a giant space station shaped like a hand or something. And anyway, so yeah, it's bad. But is it bad enough to be good? I think so. I had a positive experience. I laughed a lot, and it was interesting to say the least. So I'm gonna have to give Starcrash 1978 a B minus. I mean, I've given things that I liked less than this a B minus. I mean, I'm not giving it a full B though, because like I said, it was confusing as fuck, and it just went all over the place. And yeah, there was a lot of stuff in there. A lot of it just kind of fell flat, and like the fight scenes are terrible, and even the laser effects are pretty terrible. So yeah, it has that cheapness factor like really brings it down, and the just horrible acting in here is another thing that brings it down. But just the sheer what the fuckness of this movie makes it a B minus. So until next time here on Andy Boy Comics and Toys, have a good one out there, everybody.